Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for February 14th, 2025. I'm really happy to report to you today that the globalists are having their heads spinning out in the open. The European Union, the NATO group, they're completely thrown off guard by developments in the last couple of days. And these are some very dramatic developments that present an opportunity to put an end to the idea of a unipolar order, put an end to the provocations of the geopoliticians of the City of London and Wall Street, and put the United States back online for a development perspective that would benefit the American people and the world. Now, on Wednesday, I had an interview with Helga LaRouche of the Schiller Institute. And she laid out the problems in Europe. She said that the Europeans are facing an economic collapse, which is because they bought into Biden's policies and the idea of the unipolar order. The high energy prices, these are self-imposed by the sanctions against Russia. And the belief that they have that Europe is going to be in a war with Russia is pushing them to spend money that they don't have on defense capabilities that they can't produce. Completely insane. This is the axioms that Europe continues to labor under. And I think if you look at the interview then I did yesterday, which was posted yesterday with the member of the Bundestag from the Alternative for Deutschland party, Dr. Rainer Rothfuss, he made the same points that Helga LaRouche made and asked the question, can the European Union and NATO break with Biden's geopolitics and move into a Eurasian perspective with Russia, China, and at the same time, the United States? So both of these interviews are going to be linked in the description section below. They're quite significant because what it shows is that the LaRouche organization has been out front in the real world while the oligarchs have been pushing for some kind of great reset, some kind of technocratic world regime, which is collapsing. They can be defeated, and now's the time for you to act. Today at 11 a.m. Eastern, there'll be the 89th straight week for an online Zoom call of the International Peace Coalition. The special guest today will be Dr. Naledi Pandor, the former foreign minister of South Africa, who is now actively involved in pulling together the financing and the economic policy of the BRICS. So I would urge you to, if you can't catch it live, again, it's 11 a.m. Eastern. There's a link for it in the description section below. If you can't catch it live, you can get it on the archive. Now let's look at these developments that have led us to conclude that the moment for change is here, and that the LaRouche organization has been out front and ahead of the times in presenting both what's causing the crisis and what the solution is. We're at the end of an era that goes back to the end of World War II, especially post-1971, but in a sense it goes back 500 or 600 years. The era of European colonialism is over. Now, even Marco Rubio recognized this when he said that the idea of the unipolar order is gone. And what's emerging is a post-colonial order centered around the BRICS, around the global south. The ideas and the attempts by Obama, Biden, Blinken, Boris Johnson, and others who are acting on behalf of the oligarchs of the City of London to prevent this day from happening is over. And the best example of this is what's happening with the Ukraine war. President Trump yesterday said that the Ukraine war is a result of the eastward expansion of NATO. Exactly. And this is what Biden and others refuse to acknowledge. This is what Putin raised going back to the middle period of the first decade of this century, 2004 to 2008, repeatedly warning about the security threat to Russia by the eastward expansion of NATO, which the Europeans and the Americans had promised would not happen. And it turns out they lied. They intended it to happen because they intended to use it to break up Russia. And that's what the Ukraine war was about, to break up and weaken Russia, to minimally to prevent Russia from working for an alternative system. But more importantly, to impose costs on Russia that would force Russia to sell off their raw materials, a policy of breaking up Russia to complete the job that was being done in the 1990s. And what's clear is Putin would have none of it. Putin was a defender of the Russian nation and the Russian people, and he mobilized them to carry out this transformation so that Russia has actually improved its economy under the most vicious sanctions from Biden and the West. So you have the shift going on Ukraine, and it appears as though there may be something happening on Gaza. It's too early to tell. This may be a problem, but we'll see. But if you look at the Ukraine situation, Defense Secretary Hegseth told NATO there will be no return of so-called Ukrainian land to Ukraine because it's not practical. In other words, the negotiations will take place with Russia holding on to the land where the people voted to merge with Russia. He also said there will be no membership for Ukraine in NATO. And what this means is an end to the war is coming. Whether Zelensky likes it or not, whether NATO likes it or not, Europe is panicked. The question is, who will defend Europe from Putin? That's what they're asking. But a better question would be, who will defend the European Union and NATO from the consequences of their own idiocy? That's the issue that they should be taking up. And this is being confronted now by what Hegseth said, by what Trump is saying, Trump's discussions with Putin, the fact that a summit is on the way. And what they're going to talk about is not just Ukraine. They're going to take care of that quickly. Then they're going to be discussing the BRICS. They're going to be discussing Southwest Asia. They're going to discuss global energy policy and a number of other issues, including immigration, that affect every country. And if Trump and Putin can agree on the importance of sovereign nations working together for mutual benefit, then what good will it be to have people like Rutte, the NATO General Secretary, or whoever gets elected in Germany, Macron in France, talking about the European alternative? Europe is finished unless it changes its axioms. Now in Gaza, there's some indication that things are shifting after the threats to end the ceasefire and go back to full-scale war. It appears the ceasefire is back in place, and Trump's threat to take over Gaza may have activated some of the Arab neighbors to come up with solutions which are not based on the U.S. taking over Gaza, but the rebuilding of Gaza, and not based on throwing the Palestinians out, but establishing a viable, stable Palestinian state. It remains to be seen whether that will be carried through, but it looks as though there's motion in that direction, along with the motion around Ukraine. As I said, extremely dramatic and crucial developments. Then we have the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the head of Department of Health and Human Services. These are more death blows to the corporate cartels and their agents in the intelligence community. Interestingly, more Kennedy assassination documents have been uncovered that were hidden. With this declassification and the promise of Gabbard that she will not turn away from the evidence of corruption and mismanagement. In fact, she's going to unearth it and make it available so people will see why we've been so wrong recently. What was wrong with the George W. Bush policies, the Obama policies, the Biden policies? They all came from the special relationship between the United States and British intelligence. And if that's uprooted, then there's no way to stop the changes underway, both in terms of a new security architecture, but then beyond that, how do you guarantee peace? Economic cooperation. And with the City of London oligarchs knocked off balance, we have to address the final weakness here, which is the Team Trump weakness on economics. And that has a lot to do with credit policy, with you get out of a depression not by austerity, but by investing in the areas that produce the greatest return. And this is where LaRouche's 4 laws are of absolute urgency, because security comes from economic development. And this was LaRouche's specialty. So the idea of the new Bretton Woods of LaRouche, the extension of the Belt and Road Initiative with corridors of development into Europe, into Central Asia, into Africa. These are the solutions, the Oasis Plan, the North American Water and Power Alliance. And all of this comes from LaRouche's 4 laws. So the issue here is we need you working with us. We need you to study these ideas so that you can be a leader in your community, in your workplace, to bring people around to reality and to the fight for truth to overcome the narratives that have brainwashed your fellow citizens for the last 50 years. Now is the time to make the change. Subscribe to the Executive Intelligence Review. Spread our literature around. Share these videos. And use this weekend to think about what more you can do to bring about this dramatic change. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for maintaining your optimism. And let's work together to win this fight.